Welcome to the RevRoom. I'm your host, Rachel Bryant. Join me each episode as we discuss the strategies of top marketing practitioners, uncovering the tactics that transform ideas into revenue. Whether you're a seasoned marketer or an aspiring leader, the RevRoom is your go-to source for actionable advice and industry trends. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and enjoy this episode. Hey there, all you marketers out there. I get really excited about all of our episodes on the Rev Room, but this one in particular is fire. Today, I'm talking to Hannah Swanson, who runs marketing at Intensify, and we're flipping the script on Nurture's bad rap. No more boring drip campaigns, please. Think less annoying email barrage and more strategic buyer love fest. We're diving into why Nurtures have gotten a bum deal and how we can jazz it up for the modern marketer. So get ready for a no BS guide to transforming your static nurtures into dynamic, always on engagement machines. We talk about various campaign types to keep your buyers perpetually intrigued throughout their journey. So let's go. It's time to nurture like you mean it. Okay, well, welcome everybody to this episode. We're talking to Hannah Swanson from Intensify, and we're really excited to have you on the show today, Hannah. Welcome. Would love to have you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do at Intensify.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me today. Love supporting Inverta's all of your endeavors. And love that we're talking email or not just email nurture, but nurture as a whole today.
Yeah.
I'm Hannah Swanson. I am the Senior Director of Marketing at Intensify. I've been here for about 2 years now. I've always been in the B2B marketing and technology space. I absolutely love it here. I love marketing to marketers. I lead a small team and we are making big strides on how to go to market in a really modern and efficient way.
Awesome. Well, we're really excited to have you on, and we're going to talk nurtures. I almost called this episode nurtures. Is it a 4-letter word? But we decided to go a little bit more clean than that. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we redefine nurtures as marketers. And this is a topic I'm actually really excited about because I feel like it's an uphill battle sometimes at companies I've been with and then that we work with now at Inverta. But first, we're going to start with we always ask our guests to bring their favorite coffee mug. So I'm going to share mine and then while you get yours ready. So today, my coffee mug is my Hamilton coffee mug. And it's,
Love it.
yes, and it's the da 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 song on it. My husband bought this for me. I was obsessed with Hamilton back during the pandemic when we were all stuck at home. I think I watched it a dozen times on Disney Plus. So that's my favorite mug. How about you, Hannah? What'd you bring
I love
today?
it. I brought, and you'll laugh because we were just talking about this before we started recording. Corgi butts drive me nuts. I have a corgi. He is the love of my life. And we're in a bit of a toxic relationship because he just bosses me around all the time and I just let it happen. And everyone that I know, I have a corgi and I have a horse. I'm like a very, very traditional horse girl in that sense. We must have corgis. So everyone who knows me either gets me things with horses on them or things with corgis on them. The amount of corgi paraphernalia I have is obscene,
Wow.
but this is by far the best piece.
Okay. I really like that a lot. And so the audience knows your corgi is named Wilbur, which I think is one of the greatest names I've ever
Yes.
heard for a dog. Yeah. That's great.
It's very fitting. There's something about it. It's just, and people go, like Wilbur, like the pig? I'm like, yeah, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Just
Which fits our
move
generation
on.
great, right? So, we grew up on that Charlotte's Web sort of thing. So that's awesome. Okay. Well, we're here to talk about nurtures, and I'm sure the audience is like, come on, get to the nurtures. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And one of the things we really want to hit on is we're not talking your boring old drip campaign. Here's 4 emails when we got you to land in download our white paper and hopefully you'll convert and we can send you to sales. We got to do better, marketers, right? Like we've got to do better. So we want to try to redefine nurtures here today. Talk a little bit, Hannah, about why effective nurturing is so important and how companies get it wrong sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the old way that we used to think about nurture in B2B marketing was just set up an email campaign. They download an asset. They are ready to chat. So maybe, a 3 email drip campaign. And if we weren't asking for demos by the end of that, they're like, well, they must not be at all ready to buy. They must, even potentially be disqualified. And we would, reroute them back into our CRMs, and the contact would just kind of go there to die. And if we re-engage them, 6 months down the road with something else that we were doing, great. But it wasn't a really fully baked strategy that uh, offered a great customer experience, or a research experience even. And, in the last couple of years with, uh, you know, more technology developments and better data, we have been able to up level our nurture strategy in the way that we think about it. And and for some, that's just more targeted and uh, better email campaigns. They might be a little bit longer. They're persona based. They are segment or industry based, and it's not just kind of a one size fits all um, system. And even that is, leap years better than where we were. But it's still not enough. And I think what I'm really trying to do with my team is this omni-channel approach to nurture. That's really more so, I almost look at it more as retargeting versus a nurture.
Mm.
We have the email campaigns set up. We have them persona based, and we have them set to trigger based on where accounts are in their research journey, whether they're still, in awareness, or if they're further down towards a decision. We have customer nurture tracks. I think that keeping keeping up in your customers and your prospects inboxes is important, but you also have to meet them everywhere else that they are. They're not in their inbox all day long. So if you can create that journey and keep educating through multiple channels, and meeting them with that right message that they need to read at the right time, that's going to be more effective.
Yeah.
Um, and there was a second part to your question, and you're going to have to remind me.
No, I was really thinking about how did we get to this place where we only thought about nurtures as these drip campaigns? And like, I want to be respectful of all of the marketers who are listening to this and have done that in their past. By the way, me too.
We've all done it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and I feel like obviously path of least resistance, all the things you just described are complicated to set up. It takes thought process. It takes some systems even to try to identify
Yep.
personas and what are people interested in and utilizing all of those channels. But just talk a little bit about what you guys see it intensify, especially with you're so focused. A lot of your focus is on content syndication. So you're
Yeah.
driving I'm going to use air quotes for those in the listening audience, air quote leads that people basically buy through content syndication and pull into their marketing automation systems and then really just push them straight to sales as if they're sales ready because they went to a syndicated site in which they saw your piece of content and went there. And I went like, let's unpack that a little bit because I think that's one thing we see
Yeah.
is those are not leads. Those are contacts you've just acquired. You need to nurture them.
Absolutely. Make no mistake, content syndication leads, I would, I don't have any data to prove this, but I would say, they probably don't know who they even downloaded that piece of content
I've heard that
for,
anecdotally
or
many
from.
times. Yes.
Yeah, and that's coming from someone, like I said, like, Intensify, we are an intent data company, and we offer solutions for, just, intent activated display and intent activated lead gen, i.e. content syndication programs. And while they are, I think, far superior than, just going the traditional route of content syndication, through list buys,
Yep.
kind of the old way to do it, just through your publishing partners, giving them parameters. When you add intent, sure, it's going to be a lot more powerful. But even still, those leads are so top of funnel, as it relates to at least brand recognition. So there's so much work to be done once you get those leads into your system that you can't just abandon them. And if you hand them right to the BDRs or right to your sales team, they're going to get mad at you because they're going to go, marketing sending me junk. I hate marketing. And that's just a good way to ruin your day. So
Week,
we
year,
can't react to
month,
that.
whatever, quarter, all the things. Yes. Mhm.
Good way to ruin your day. But, also, the marketer's job is to educate. I actually, a couple of months ago, I was doing a webinar with Jessica Fulis at Inverta. Shout out to Jess. And she had one of her opening slides was discussing about how marketing has to get the deal to like the 80-yard line if we're talking in context of football. I don't really know what that means, but apparently it means most of the way done. And then we pass it to the sales team. So
I like
context,
that you said
please.
80-yard line because there's no 80-yard line in football, but I
Well,
understand what
that you
she's
know what, though,
saying.
that was probably me paraphrasing. Whatever your 10-yard line, I think I got it
Okay.
wrong. Almost in touchdown territory.
In the red zone. I got you.
Perfect. Not a football enthusiast. I do not claim to be. Um, but that resonates so much, and that's necessarily selling. Yes, you want to, as you get closer and closer and closer to the end and ready to pass off to sales, you have to be presenting that more kind of quote unquote lower funnel content, maybe as uh, it might look like a case study or a product demo that's on demand. Something that's a little bit more solution oriented versus thought leadership. But it's all from a place of educating and giving the prospect more tools to add, to their toolbox to understand what it is that they think they might need to buy. Because remember, when we're so top of funnel, we're still introducing a problem. And many of us, many times those content syndication leads don't yet realize that there is a problem or there's a better way. And we have to then get those contacts into our CRMs and retarget them and nurture them to understand the problem, understand there are solutions out there, understand what that process to change looks like.
Yeah. So how does somebody start to transition to thinking about that? Like, what are some, it's a great concept and everybody listening could go, okay, yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, I probably should do that. How? How do you get started doing something like that?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the first things you can do is really understand how long your sales cycle is, and figure out where marketing needs to come into play during those sales cycles. Um, you know, Many of you listening are probably either in SaaS or like SaaS adjacent marketing tech. Those deal cycles are probably months long. So you have to be able to have tracks in place or plans in place that keep those prospects warm and learning for months at a time. Now, that starts, I think, with having a huge library of content.
Mm,
And marketers that don't have a lot of content at their fingertips, I think your job is harder. Um, One of my biggest when I come into an organization, the first thing I look at is what content do I have accessible? How many and if it's all long form content, great. I can make long short and create a bunch of little things that I can slowly tease out. But having that knowledge base and this resource center available makes a nurture strategy that much easier to get off the ground. After that, it's looking into, okay, who are the personas within my buying group that I have to understand and engage? It's not just one. Um, you can't only speak to like the decision maker because oftentimes I think the decision makers are really just the one that signs the dotted line and gets the buy-in. They're probably not the users. I would argue more oftentimes than not, they're definitely not the users.
yep.
Um, so you have to be able to touch and engage and educate all of those people within the buying groups and understand what it is that they're interested in and kind of what makes their job easier. You can figure out what makes their job easier. You can create content or gather the content to then show them, and kind of push them along this journey. And then also figuring out where it is that they hang out most days. Um,
Mm,
and that will kind of tell you where your channels are, whether you want to go down the content syndication route, whether you want to go down maybe a LinkedIn advertising route or, um, you know, heavily rely on email or whatever that digital channel may be.
yeah. But when you talk about omni-channel too, like part of that, the importance of really diversifying the channels that you're using for various reasons. Like you may not see a one-to-one sort of connection between like a display ad or even a LinkedIn sponsored ad. I mean, you might see some, but like the idea is that you're lifting the overall sort of like what you're getting out of like the results that you're going to get like through that sort of omni channel. You may actually get an email response, right? But that email response may not have come through if you weren't sort of covering that lead or that contact or that account, right? In these other channels.
Yeah.
I sometimes I hear customers say, "Well, I don't see ROI through XYZ channel or whatever that is," and so we just pulled back budget from that. But in my mind, you're hurting your other channels when you start to like look at one-to-one sort of attribution through a specific channel. And
Yeah.
that's where in the nurture side of things, that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I had like I'm a very metrics oriented marketer. I just really enjoy it. Uh that said, I don't get hung up on performance data from the channels that I know are not huge conversion channels. I.e., display is a brand play.
Mhm.
If you're measuring display on how many conversions you get from, you know, form fills and coming all from display, you're going to be really disappointed.
Yes.
But it's all about creating that connected journey that says, okay, I know that I want to engage these people. If I can start putting my brand in front of them, using display campaigns, and meeting them where they are and constantly reinforcing my brand and my value prop, even if they never click it, they're still seeing it. So that way, when we do send them something that is a little bit more action oriented, that we're putting, some more money behind with the goal of conversions, we're more likely to click it. And it's getting that full picture and being able to create a journey that makes sense. Because the last thing you want to do is take a content syndication lead and have a BDR follow up and say, "Want to see a demo?
Yeah.
Because you downloaded an ebook from
They're like,
somebody else
"Who?
who
From
I think
who?"
sent it to you a month ago." Like,
Yes.
so,
Yes.
now again, I say this all with a caveat of I have seen, because I have the luxury of working at Intensify, our content syndication programs definitely perform better than others that I have in my past. I've honestly been a little hesitant to invest in content syndication until I saw it done really, really well here. Having intent behind it is definitely the differentiator. But even still, there's still so much lift that goes into it. And if we're looking at conversions from, lead all the way down to opportunity creation, how long that took and how many other touch points have to take place, it's very clear that buying does not happen over an email drip campaign. It happens over multiple interactions, over usually a few months.
Yeah.
And that's coming from a place like our deal cycles compared to, others in our industry are probably fairly short.
Mm.
We're probably averaging a couple of months, um, once the conversation has started with sales. So the fact that we really, we still have to market to them for 3, 6, sometimes even upwards of 12 months before that real traction starts taking place, I think is pretty significant. So imagine if you have an 18-month long
Mhm.
sales process.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Before
it
they
can
get
be
in.
done. I mean, I don't have a big team. We're pretty lean. Intensify is only around, we're how many? We're around 150. We could be more. We have a global team. Sometimes I lose count. We're not huge. My marketing team is in the single digits, and we can create some pretty bang up strategies without a ton of effort because we understand that it's all about meeting them where they are. And if we were to put so much effort into just doing email, we would be taking away from those other channels. It has to be an omni-channel approach.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about maybe some examples of things that you have done, in your team that you've seen a lot of success in this realm.
Yeah, for sure. Um, it's at top of mind because we just did like a masterclass webinar on this on Tuesday earlier this week, and we have seen, partly due to the fact that my digital marketer is outstanding. And I you could try to pry her away from me, absolutely not. She's just outstanding. Can't say enough good things. My whole team is outstanding, but like she has figured out how to do things in such a creative and unique way. Um, and it's just made such an impact on our marketing uh, efforts. But anyway, I digress. What has really worked for us is we get a huge bunch of our like initial leads each month from content syndication campaigns. Um, when we take those and we, say, okay, if they downloaded this ebook, kind of put them into this retargeting campaign. If they downloaded a case study, this campaign. And that's all persona based. Our personas aren't, they're pretty standard. Like we usually sell into the demand gen or the digital marketer first, and we get buy-in from the rest of the demand gen team, usually CMO, CFO. Um, so it's a pretty similar message throughout the buy cycle. Um, but when we take those content syndication leads and we retarget them on LinkedIn through very strategic campaign segments, we're seeing like lead conversions
Hmm.
off of LinkedIn. Like I've never really experienced that before. LinkedIn, I had always reserved LinkedIn paid campaigns for like special occasions.
Yeah.
When we had like a big webinar, we had a big event or a product launch. It's an always on channel for us now. We never turn it off.
Wow.
It works so well because that is where our customers are hanging out most of the day. They always have LinkedIn open. So it is a channel that works really well for us. And if we can say, and then you can plug in also LinkedIn's retargeting and just keep presenting the right content, the right message all the way down.
Yeah.
Um, that is becoming a really good, almost lower funnel channel for us. Um, we start with display uh, on like for air cover on our target accounts. Content Sin provides names, and then they're of course entered into email campaigns, then down to LinkedIn.
I'm so glad that you're finding success there. You were talking a little bit about the persona-based, nurtures that you're
Mhm,
doing, and I think a lot of people think about nurtures as kind of just a welcome campaign. I mean, we call them like welcome nurtures, which are important, I think, especially when you're like bringing in maybe a content syndication lead or something like that. To
mhm,
your point, they don't know who you are. So, like, maybe you have a campaign that's sort of educating them about your brand, or, hey, I know you have this problem. We can solve it, in some way, shape, or form.
yeah,
But talk about a little bit about some of the other types of campaigns you might run in a nurture. You talked a little bit about the lower funnel nurture
mhm,
campaign or something like that. How do you try to your point, reach people where they are, but even when they are in the buyer's
sure.
journey?
We try to present them with things that are helpful. Um, I at lea what I try to set up campaigns and create content that I would want to download, I would want to consume if I were in a buy cycle. And that is not always a 30-page ebook because I don't have time for that. What I do have time for are actionable resources that help me do my job better. For example, we love creating like fillable PDF worksheets. We did one earlier this year that's like the ultimate digital campaign planning template. It's a fillable PDF and it's all of the parameters and all of the, everything you would need to get a campaign off the ground. What's your target audience size? Fill that out. What's the value prop? What's the message? Who are the personas you're trying to reach? All the way down to here are the ad formats that you're going to want to load into your DSP. Make sure you have all of these. We aim to be helpful.
Hmm.
And if by sending those helpful resources, that once they've maybe consumed 3, 4 of them, then it makes sense for a BDR to start the outreach because they know the brand and they might be more inclined to listen to what we're talking to them about. Um, so I think as marketers, if we can help them do their jobs better and come from a place of educating in a friendly and helpful way, that is what's going to move the needle as opposed to always, you know, presenting solution based. You're not doing it right. Here's the right way to do it. Here's what we're doing. This is why we're better. So and so said we're better. This is how much we cost less than this other solution. Whatever that may be. And there's a time and a place for that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, Especially in, competitive takedown campaigns, if that's what you're going for. But if it's a regular net new logo, nurture campaign, come from a place of being helpful.
I think that's a really great tip, Hannah. I love what you said too, is like, I try to consider what I would do as a buyer, what works for me. And of course, that's an individual thing. And sometimes maybe we even get blinders on there. But I think what the other side of that is, as marketers, we start to think about, oh, well, I have these 8 pieces of content. They're really awesome. And I'm just going to get them in front of somebody. And to your
Mhm.
point, I don't know about you. I don't have time to read 30 page white papers. I never have. And I'm currently not necessarily always a buyer in a certain, sort of something that might maybe we're getting targeted at in Verta, but I am an influencer
Yeah,
and I want content that I can consume quickly. And to your point, that is helpful for me. I don't need you to tell me about all the things that I'm doing wrong. I need you to tell me how
yeah,
to fix it. And I think one thing we try to do here is, yes, we highlighted, an area where we think people need to think differently, but it's also, here are like practical steps to go start doing that. And try to inspire
simple.
people to think outside of what they've been sort of doing all along. And honestly, like, think is again, I think it's one there's a couple things. I think you have two big things at play. People are doing so much because all companies are doing more with less, and so everybody's being asked and tasked with so much. I'm talking more about the marketer and the practitioner trying to
Sure.
maybe shift the way they do this. And so then you go sort of path of least resistance. I know I got to do something, so here's a drip campaign. Fine, do that. If you're not doing that today, do that, right?
Absolutely.
Then try to step back and talk to the or sit in on a BDR call. What does it sound like when they're talking to a lead that comes in from a certain channel or at a certain place or a certain score or whatever that is, right? Do ride-alongs with your BDR team. Understand the
Mhm.
challenges they're facing. What is the customer saying? Are they saying, "I don't know who you are. Why are you calling me?" Right? All of this sort of things. But I think secondly, back to the point you made, put yourself in the buyer's shoes. And
Mhm.
again, we go back to that omni channel that we were talking about. I don't click through on ads, but I do see them.
Yep.
And it may influence me. I am on LinkedIn a lot. Um, and I see content and I go, oh, that's interesting. And is that content compelling? Is it making yeah, I have a colleague who said the other day, he's like, our thought leadership, any thought leadership content that someone creates should be debatable. Should not
Yeah.
make everybody feel fluffy. It should be something that is compelling and somebody goes, I'm not so sure about that, but that's interesting. Right?
Mhm.
And I think that's really important to think about. I just said a lot, but I think my point is, don't stay stuck in your ways. Try to fix it, but baby steps towards it. So if somebody is today, only doing a welcome drip nurture, what would that next step be for them? What would you say? Okay, now go try this.
I believe it or not, and this is gonna feel like it's coming from left field. Instead of focusing so much on that immediate, like, net new logo, like, nurture, I would encourage you to set up a customer nurture
Ooh,
because the pressure to get them in the door is over, and that will help you create that helpful content, the helpful content, and you'll see what is actually resonating because um, you've already accomplished. They know who you are. The brand recognition, check, done. So when you take that out of the equation and you get down to, okay, what is actually working when it comes to, encouraging more downloads, more, coming back to your website, downloading more content, or interacting with you in any way, your customers are going to be the ones to tell you. And they also feel a little bit, more of a relationship to you. So they're more likely to read it. It, it allows for a good like testing environment. And then you take what you've learned from that and you say, okay, these are the pieces. This is the content that's really working. These are the messages that my customers are saying resonate. Now let's flip that to the prospect lens. And let's understand where it is my prospects are doing their research. Where else can I reach them outside of email? What makes the most sense? And then start building a little at a time.
Mm.
That's how I would do it. And then once you're fully evolved and it's working and you have this always on strategy that is fueling your pipeline while you do nothing at all, while you just do, you focus on everything else that you're doing in marketing. Um, then you'll have your answers and you can just kind of iterate from there and swap out, what's new, what's getting a little bit stale, what could stand to be redone. Um, that's how I would go about it. I also, and I this is not completely related, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk about it. Rachel, I think you and I spoke about this when we were doing our prep call a few weeks ago. Like the best nurture that I've ever seen done was instead of time based, it was trigger based. And if you can do whatever you like, if it functions off of an action that someone has taken, it's so much more relevant than being like, well, once a week
Yes. Yes.
if you can get to that level, now that takes a lot of process, a lot of planning, and it takes tech.
Yeah.
Um, and,
But everybody
but if
has a
you
tech stack.
I do,
Everybody has a tech stack. It's there. It's there. You have
it's
to
like
learn how to leverage it.
100%. And if you can use that and use that to your advantage, you're going to see so many more interactions from your audience. Um, and it's just it's a bit of a snowball effect.
Yes.
And then that once we take that, I actually I done this in the past with a previous company. We had a freemium product and we had trigger based nurture, and it was just email. Whatever they did in the platform, it was for an event marketing technology company. And whatever they did in the platform in the freemium environment, if they, you know, tried to level up their design a little bit, they would get this design track. Hey, here's what you can do on the full service platform. Um, you know, everything like that. And some of them were just tips to do it better, tips for to make it creating a better event, tips for how to run the door really effectively when you have 50 people lined up. And all, that would get so it would create so many more engagements. And then it would also build really sticky customers.
Yes.
So that was probably one of my more exciting and favorite nurture campaigns to date because we were able to do it based on product triggers. Now, if you don't have a freemium product, or if you don't have a product that someone's playing in a platform at all, obviously it's not applicable, but I had to explain it because it was really cool.
Yeah.
It really moved the needle for us.
That's great. I remember you telling me about that and I was like, yeah, those were really
It's
great
cool.
ideas. Yeah. I love it when something that you dream up and put
It
into place actually works.
it worked so well that we didn't have to do anything but email.
Yeah.
That's what's really cool. The reason why the 3 drip email has gotten a bad rap is because it doesn't really work.
Right.
This one works so well that we could just do email.
Yes. Yes. But to your point, back to you're meeting
Yeah,
the individual where they are with what they need at that time, not, hey,
exactly.
we do this or you're doing it wrong or whatever. Right? Like that trigger base. That's a really good tip. I like that. All right. So we've talked about a lot of things and there's some undertone here. I just want to like elephant in the room, or I don't know if it's an elephant or what it is, but um I'm sort of thinking through it. I'm like, okay, if I'm a marketer, I'm going, okay, but in order to do this well, I need a lot of content, right? You talked about a pretty
Right.
good sized content library. And some companies struggle with that, or like you said, they have a lot of long form, but like honestly, you could take some AI tools and put your long form content into it and ask you to like, extract things for you to go build a blog or an ad or
Yes.
this and that, everything. Anyways, so you need content, you need messaging, maybe refined messaging that's not so us focused, but like solution
Yeah.
oriented or even like pain point oriented. It's not even solution oriented, right? Like
Figure
we
out
feel
what
your
messages
pain.
resonate.
Mhm.
Yeah, figuring out what messages resonate with your target audience is paramount to any campaign, whether it's a nurture campaign or whether it's a try to get them in the door for, the first time.
Yep.
If the messaging's off, it's never gonna work.
Yeah. And then it's really just it's using the tech that you have, understanding how those pieces can fit together. What are either those triggers or the insights that you have on that individual, whether it's persona based or what they interacted with or continue to interact with, things like that, right? You want to layer that in. That's really important. And then it's making sure you're utilizing several channels at the same time. It's not just email. It's maybe, you're like you said, you're adding in maybe some LinkedIn sponsored stuff, some display, things like that. So I mean, to me, it seems complicated when you sort of say it, but when you start to just step back, like you can do some small things. So, I know we talked about like how would you move forward, but pro tip time, Hannah, like what could you give somebody today as a tangible sort of takeaway as a next step? Um, if after they listening to this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I would take a current inventory. What do you do? And what is your BDR and your sales team doing?
Mhm.
Make sure, first and foremost, are are the messages aligned? Um,
Yes.
I am lucky enough to have our BDRs in our marketing organization. So we're very aligned on what we say versus what the BDRs say. I know many organizations have those development roles in sales. So sometimes the messages can get a little far apart.
Yep.
Make sure they're the same. So that way, whenever the handoff happens, regardless of the, nurture infrastructure that you have, make sure it feels natural and seamless. Um, Otherwise, it's what we said before, start small. Anything else you can do that, doesn't take a significant amount of budget to test, try that.
Yeah.
Tweak what you're doing a little bit, see if it makes sense to either, target smaller or maybe go a little bit wider if you're not getting the engagement that you want. Um, you don't have to boil the ocean on the first try. You don't have to redo a nurture strategy and completely rebuild because it's a lot of work,
Yes.
and just start small.
Yeah. I think that's a great tip. And just use what you have already and start to layer on it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, use what you have already until it absolutely can't do the job anymore.
Yes. That's great.
And like there's nothing worse than onboarding a giant platform if you can avoid it at all costs.
Yes.
And whatever you do, tech is not a platform is not a band-aid, and it's not gonna fix anything. If anything, it's just gonna make your CFO a little angry at you, and you're gonna feel stressed about proving the ROI.
Yeah.
So if you can accomplish what you're doing on, use what you have or campaign focused basis, that is where you're going to see quicker wins. What can I get started with right now?
Yeah. Yeah, great tips. Well, Hannah, we could talk about this all day, I think. But alas, we have to end our time together. But thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm sure the Rev Room audience has really enjoyed this conversation, and look forward to seeing how you and Intensify continue to grow. We love working with you here at Inverta.
Thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks, Hannah. Thanks for tuning in to the Rev Room today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. For more, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Don't forget to follow Inverta on LinkedIn for more updates and exclusive content. That's Inverta, INVERTA. Have a question or a topic you'd like us to cover? Reach out and let us know. Until next time, keep innovating and driving that revenue growth. See you next time.